You ever go camping with your wife and think, yep, this is going to be a peaceful weekend, only to end up watching her parade through the whole campsite in torn pajamas while folks pop their heads out of tents like prairie dogs? Yeah, that happened. It's been a few years since that trip, but I can still see it clear as daylight. We were younger, but not young. Seasoned enough to know how to pitch a tent without a screaming match. Mostly, Tammy had this idea, just the two of us, no kids, no phones, no real plan. Just a weekend escape. We packed up the old Subaru with everything we could fit, 2 folding chairs, a big blue cooler that groaned every time you moved it, a duffel bag full of snacks, and our prized double-layer tent. We got on sale at the end of a summer sale 3 years prior, but never used. Still had the tag on it. We pulled into the campsite mid-afternoon, the sun still high and warm. It was one of those family-friendly parks, clean gravel paths, picnic benches at each lot, even little solar lights lining the bathhouse trail. Trees flanked the site on 3 sides, tall ones, with crisp green leaves that danced in the breeze. You could hear a creek nearby and the faint crackle of someone else's fire starting up. "Oh, this is perfect," Tammy said, stretching her arms above her head as she stepped out of the car. Her ponytail bobbed and her hiking boots hit the dirt with purpose. I just nodded, taking in the quiet. "Smells like clean air and mosquito spray," I said, grabbing the first armful of gear from the back. Let's claim our patch of paradise. We were at Lot 22, decent size. Flat ground. Tree cover above, but a nice gap for stars if the clouds behaved. Across from us, an older couple had already set up a modest camper trailer. 2 lots over, some teenagers were wrestling with a tent pole like it owed them money. Tammy rolled out the tarp, eye on the ground like a general surveying a battlefield. "A little more to the left," she said as I hauled out the tent bag. I grinned. "Of course, dear General." After a bit of creative cussing and me nearly tripping on the rainfly, we had the tent up. Not bad for a couple who hadn't camped together since our dating days. Inside, we laid out the sleeping pads, unrolled the double sleeping bag, and stuck our battery-powered lantern to the roof loop. Then it was snack time, trail mix, and those thick oat cookies Tammy always packs for hikes. We sat in our camp chairs under the late afternoon sun, feet kicked up watching the campsite come alive. Kids rode bikes on the gravel loop. A dad nearby tried to light charcoal in a grill while his toddler kept handing him rocks. A breeze pushed the leaves into a soft rustle overhead. It was the kind of calm that fills your lungs and slows your pulse. Tammy glanced at the trail map tacked to the corkboard near the main path. "There's a little loop walk behind the ridge. Says it leads to a lookout. You up for it? Only if there's a chance of spotting a squirrel wrestling a sandwich," I said, standing up and cracking my back. She laughed. "Deal." We hiked the loop hand in hand, letting the trail wind us through tall ferns and the occasional log bridge. The lookout wasn't much, a wooden platform with a view over the trees toward the creek, but it was quiet, peaceful. We just stood there for a while, not saying much. "You know," I said after a bit, "this place feels like the kind of spot where people come back year after year, like it builds memories." Tammy nodded. "Maybe we'll be those people one day. Show up every summer, tell the same stories." She didn't know then that one of those stories was about to be written in very dramatic fashion. By the time we made it back to camp, the sun had dipped below the tree line. I fired up the little camping stove and made our specialty, instant noodles with sliced sausage and hot sauce. She cracked open a fizzy grape soda and plopped down on her chair, legs kicked up on the cooler. "Best meal ever," she said through a mouthful. We finished dinner, cleaned up the plates, and tossed everything back into the bear safe box at the edge of the site. Stars began to pop overhead, one by one, as the temperature dropped just enough to pull on a hoodie. Across the way, someone started a quiet campfire. Another tent played soft music, something acoustic and slow. The sounds of the night were settling in, chirping crickets, rustling leaves, the occasional click of a tent zipper. It was perfect for now. By the time the stars were really out, I'm talking big, fat ones you only see when you're far from the city. The whole campsite had started to hush down like it was following some unspoken bedtime rule. We'd both brushed our teeth at the shared sink station about 30 steps from the tent. Real fancy setup, steel basins, foot pedal water pumps, and one of those dull mirrors that makes your face look like it's halfway through a ghost story. I caught a glimpse of myself and said, "Remind me never to shave in campground lighting." Tammy, already in her night getup, just chuckled beside me, rinsing out her mouth with bottled water. She'd changed into that bright blue fleece onesie she loved so much, the one covered in tiny yellow stars. It had a little hood with bare ears and a long zipper that ran all the way from her neck to just under her hip line. A full-body cloud of comfort, she called it. "Do I look ridiculous?" she asked, hands on her hips. "You look adorable," I said. "Like a children's cartoon host who pays taxes." She gave me a look. "Careful. You laugh at the onesie, you sleep cold." We made our way back to the tent, stepping lightly so our flip-flops didn't kick up gravel. All around us, campsite lots had gone quiet. A few dim lanterns flickered through tent windows, casting warm orange glows against the nylon. The kids had all gone to bed. Even the teenagers with the clumsy tent from earlier. It finally called it a night. I could hear faint giggling and the occasional snort from inside their shelter. It was that magical kind of night you only get when you're out in nature. The stars twinkled like pinholes in black velvet. The trees creaked softly, just enough to remind you they were still standing guard. You could smell the last hints of smoke from nearby fire pits, now just smoldering coals. And underneath all that, there was this cool, damp, earthy scent, moss and bark and 1,000 fallen leaves pressed into the dirt. Back at our tent, I unzipped the fly and held it open like a doorman. "After you, Miss Bear Pajamas." She rolled her eyes and ducked in, crawling across the sleeping mats like a possum burrowing into a sleeping bag. I followed, zipped us in, and clicked on the lantern hanging from the loop at the roof. It filled the tent with a soft yellow light, just enough to see, not enough to blind. Inside was cozy, tight but cozy. Tammy had arranged the pillows just right, like she always does. Her water bottle was nestled into the corner. Our socks were lined up by the door like we were housebreaking the tent. We lay back in our sleeping bags side by side, shoulders touching. Outside, a breeze rustled the leaves now and then. The chirping of crickets had taken center stage. Somewhere far off, a frog croaked like it had a lot to say, but nobody to say it to. Tammy turned on her side, facing me. "Do you remember the last time we did this?" she whispered. "What, camp?" "Yeah, just the two of us. No friends, no family, just us." I thought about it. Wasn't it that trip out to Silver Pines? The one where you made those weird rice balls with peanut butter in them? She giggled. They weren't weird. They were experimental. Well, my stomach filed a complaint. She poked my ribs under the bag. "That's what you get for calling my onesie ridiculous." I smiled in the dark. "You really love that thing, don't you?" "It's warm," she said, "and it's got pockets." Can't argue with that. We lay there in silence for a few minutes, just listening to the forest, letting our breathing sink with the night. My eyes started to get heavy. The kind of heavy where, sleep's about to hit. You like a log, the good kind. The kind that comes after a long day outdoors and too many cookies. That's when Tammy stirred. "Shoot," she said softly, brushing the sleeping bag off her legs. "What's wrong?" "I gotta pee. Now let me tell you something. There's a universal camping truth that's been scientifically proven by the world's most frustrated outdoor lovers. You will not need to pee all day until the exact moment you zip yourself up warm and tight inside your sleeping bag." Tammy groaned and sat up. "I thought I'd make it till morning." I sat up too, mostly out of moral support. "Want me to come with you?" "Nah, I'll be 2 minutes. I know the path. Besides," she patted her little headlamp on the top of the onesie hood. "I got this." She turned on the headlamp and it cast a bright white cone through the tent. I squinted. "Good grief, Tammy, you trying to land airplanes?" She grinned. "Just guarding against raccoons." She unzipped the tent slowly, not wanting to wake anyone, and slipped out like a ninja in fleece. The zipper made that long, drawn-out whispering noise. Zerp! And the flaps swayed open, just enough for her to vanish into the dark. I lay back down. The tent was still warm from her body heat. I could smell her shampoo on the pillow, something fruity and clean. My eyes started drifting again. lulled by the breeze and the distant gurgle of the creek. Then I heard it. Rip. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was just unmistakable. A slow, traitorous, tearing noise that made me freeze. I sat up like a meerkat. Silence. Yeah, then from a few paces away outside the tent, I heard her whisper sharply. Oh no, I couldn't help it. I grinned. There was a pause. The kind of pause that means someone is standing perfectly still, processing the reality that something has gone terribly wrong. Then, in a much softer voice, I heard her again. Crap, I waited, my mouth twitching at the corners. I wanted to ask, everything okay? But I knew better. She'd tell me if it wasn't, and if it was embarrassing, even better to let her ride it out. After a few more seconds, I peeked through the mesh window. There she was, halfway back from the bathroom block, standing under the glow of one of those little solar lights. Her pajama onesie had a brand new, awkwardly shaped hole right where her dignity lived, back center, low enough to count as a structural failure. She looked around trying to get her bearings. Then she took a step and paused again. It hit me as she couldn't find our tent. Now, I'm not proud of what I did next. Okay, maybe I'm a little proud. See, Tammy was still standing there near the solar light, looking around like someone who'd walked into the wrong backyard and was trying to play it cool. Her headlamp flicked left then right. She pivoted slowly in place, scanning the semicircle of tents tucked into the grove. That's when I saw it, the rip, or more accurately, the gaping hole. The poor fleece onesie, bless its synthetic heart, had torn right along the back seam. Not a subtle little tear you could pass off as wear and tear. No, this was the Grand Canyon of pajama malfunctions, wide, unmistakable, and planted right on her backside. Like a billboard that read, "Look what camping did to me." I ducked back down inside the tent and bit my tongue, laughing silently, my shoulders shaking under the sleeping bag. I couldn't decide what was worse, the fact that it happened, or the fact that she didn't know just how visible it was from behind. Then I heard her whisper, faint but clear, "Charlie?" I stayed quiet. I know. But come on, it was too good. I peeked out the mesh window again and saw her shuffle to the left, making her way toward the first tent she saw. She stopped a few feet from it and hissed again. "Charlie, you in there?" The tent remained silent. She leaned in a little closer this time. "Charlie?" A muffled voice came from inside. No, she squeaked out a startled apology and scurried back toward the path. Shoulders hunched, headlamp bouncing wildly as she hurried away. Her onesie flapped slightly with every step. That poor, star-covered pajama suit had given up all structural integrity. I watched as she zigzagged through the campsites, visiting each one like she was delivering Girl Scout cookies to the wrong houses. "Charlie?" She called again, this time more urgently, crouching slightly, clearly trying not to wake anyone, which, of course, meant she was waking everyone. A few tents rustled, a zipper unzipped nearby. A woman's voice whispered, "Honey, do you hear something?" Followed by a sleepy, gruff reply, "Probably a possum." At tent number 3, things escalated. "Charlie," she hissed, tiptoeing right up to a dome tent with a string of fairy lights on it. This time a man popped his head out of the flap, his hair a mess, blinking hard. "You okay?" he asked. Tammy squealed, like a cartoon. Mouse getting surprised in the pantry and bolted sideways, clutching her backside, like she just realized the wind was getting a little too personal. I was full on chuckling now, crouched just inside the tent, watching it all play out like a silent film. Except the film had a budget and my wife was the main character. Another camper, this one in a bathrobe, unzipped her tent and poked her head out. "Everything all right, sweetheart?" she asked, concern in her voice. I'm fine, just looking for my husband," Tammy replied in a voice that tried to sound casual but cracked like dry wood. "You sure he's not one of the guys laughing over there?" the lady asked and pointed directly at me. Tammy turned. There I was, sitting cross-legged outside our tent now, hands behind my head like I was watching the stars. Only I was looking straight at her with a smile that I couldn't wipe off if I tried. Her mouth fell open, her eyes narrowed, and then slowly, so slowly it was almost cinematic, she stomped over to me. Every camper was watching. She walked stiffly, onesie torn wide, hands clenched at her sides like she was trying to decide if she should strangle me or patch her butt first. She reached our tent, looked down at me, and said in a whisper that somehow felt like a megaphone, "You just sat there?" I coughed into my hand, trying to stop the laugh that was dying to burst out. I didn't want to yell, didn't want to wake the neighbors. Oh, the neighbors are awake, Charlie. They've been watching me host a walking pajama show for the last 5 minutes. I chuckled. You were doing great. Real confident stride. Could have passed for a lost scout leader. She threw her hands up and walked in a circle, muttering something about marriage vows and dignity and sewing kits. Then she zipped herself back into the tent like she was slamming a door in my face. From the tent, her voice came muffled and fiery. Don't even think about crawling in here until I've taped this thing shut. I just sat outside, rubbing my beard, still grinning like an idiot. Across the way, a few campers chuckled quietly. One guy gave me a thumbs up. Another, an older gentleman by the fire pit, raised a cup toward me in silent salute. Tammy did eventually emerge from the tent again, this time in a hoodie and leggings, face flushed but with a little smile tugging at her lips. She plopped down into her chair beside me and sighed deeply. You're lucky I love you, she said. I am, I replied, handing her the cup of warm tea I'd made while she was sulking in the tent. She sipped, then glared, then finally laughed. And just like that, the whole campsite relaxed again. Conversations resumed in murmurs. Lanterns dimmed. Someone started strumming a guitar. So yeah, that's the story of how Tammy gave half a campground, a fashion show they didn't ask for, and how I sat outside my tent like a giddy schoolboy watching it all unfold. She wasn't impressed with me at all that night, not one bit. But tonight, well, here we are, sitting around the fire, stars above, mugs in hand, and we can all laugh about it together. That's camping for you. Sometimes it's about peace and quiet. Other times, it's about onesie malfunctions and knowing when to keep your mouth shut.